Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at the KBEAR ST1. For those of you who aren't familiar with this one, it came out just after the KS1, and a lot of us who had the KS1 early and really enjoyed it were thinking, I really hope this is the same driver as the KS1, just in metal shells, a little more affordable. That would have been a great set. So if that's what you were wondering, not the same driver, doesn't really resemble the KS1, so yeah, a little disappointed in that, but on its own, it's a different set from the KS1. So I do want to thank the AK Audio Store on AliExpress for sending this one out to me. If you look today, it's about $15.99. It's probably dropped about 25 cents during some sale, but essentially the same price since it has been released. So thank you guys for shipping the one out to me. So if we look at it up close, it actually is quite attractive. Metal shells in this hang-down style, non-detachable cable. It's your typical rubberish plastic cable. It'll spring back if there was any Velcro on it. But yeah, pretty, not typical looking, but quite a nice looking metal earbud style shell. I kind of like the design. Not so big, not so much fan of the non-detachable cable, but it is what it is. So we're not going to dive too deep into this one, mainly because it's got a recessed mids that's pretty serious, and that's essentially going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people. It's pretty much a deal breaker for me, so we'll go into the assumption that it'll be a deal breaker for a lot of you, but we will carry on and I will talk about the rest of it. So on the pro side, it is quite affordable. It is this hang down style, which is actually quite nice. There aren't that many of it, especially from chi-fi companies. TRN has a couple. KBEAR has been to this style, but more in the earbud style with the Stellar. So I do applaud them for the style because it's kind of nice and a lot of people like it. It's just easy to grab and go, throw it in your bag. Don't have to worry about wrapping cables around your ears, so quite nice. It is a 1DD as well. Sound-wise, it's a little V-shape. It's got this slight V-shape, but it's more cool than warm. It kind of surprised me a little bit. I was expecting more of a bassier, maybe more affordable bassier thing is kind of what usually happens. But in this case, it's a little V. It's kind of boosted on both sides, but not a whole lot. But it's got this cool sound to it. Cool as in the opposite of warm. It's not, the bass doesn't overly bleed into the mids at all. There isn't that much warmth in people's voices. So it's kind of a different sound from that perspective. So as I said, not too much bleed. So mostly DD tonality, except for the uppers, which go a bit brassy. So snare drums and cymbals sound a little more brassy, more higher end, and there's not as much body to it. That's what I would call brassy. It is extended on both sides. If you frequency sweep this guy, it goes down pretty low. It's got quite a bit of bass. On the upper end is going to cut out around 13, 14 in that range. So not too bad on the extension. And once you go beyond the upper mids, which I'll talk about in a minute, it's quite polite. It doesn't really cause any fatigue on the upper end, which is actually kind of nice for a nice casual set like this. So I think they actually did that right. So on the con side, on the bass side, the deeper side of the bass, it really lacks detail and it gets kind of loose and it kind of sounds a little weird. Definitely not my favorite part of this set was when tracks went really deep. It did some strange things, so I will call that loose because I wasn't really sure what it was doing, but it definitely lost control, lost definition. Lots of weird things were happening at the lower end of the bass side. So as I said, the mids are quite recessed. It's the first thing that you'll notice. You'll hear the first opening notes of a track, and as soon as you hear those vocals, they'll sound like the guy is, 7 feet away from you, and it's a small vocal image, and you just can't really put it any other way than it's just quite recessed and hard to get around. It's hard to ignore. So for me, it was quite a struggle to keep listening to it for that one fact because it just became this constant annoyance that the mids were so recessed. With more forward vocals or more forward vocal mixes like that, and you turn up the volume a little bit, there's a greater chance of sibilance. So the upper mids, they were a little sharp. If you turn up the volume, it's like I like to listen to it at a little higher volume, and you're definitely going to get kind of a little sharpness, definitely more of a chance of sibilance. that was sort of the one area where you're going to hit fatigue, especially at higher volumes. At lower volumes, and I kept on turning the volume low at this point, as soon as I started to feel that fatigue, I think it was just a warning that you're probably listening to this set at a little higher volume than you really should be. So, but if you are very aware of sibilance, do keep the volume down a little bit. So as I said, snare drums, thin and sharp, especially at higher volumes, it's thinner and sharper. This non-detachable cable, microphonics, so as this cable hits your clothing, it's going to make all sorts of weird noises from microphonics. So if you're used to detachable cables, it's going to sound annoying on that respect as well. And the stage is basically between your ears. There's nothing really special going on with that. So that's about it. That's a quick run through on the KBEAR ST1. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.